Good evening, all. Thank you so much for joining us this past few weeks. We had a lot of views, a lot of positive comments in the community. So we have decided to create a show. Community Advisors is our digital media, and we're gonna be talking. We're gonna be having shows in English during Mondays from 7 to 8, and in Spanish Wednesdays from 7 to 8. Thank you so much for the support. We're going to be talking about issues that affect um, today we're going to be talking about the case of Vanessa Guillen, and we're going to touch about also about Gregory Morales. And the host, Raymundo Reyes, Maria Segari, Contadora Latina is the other host, Edwardo Rodriguez de LULAC is the other host. Thank you so much for this our honor for joining us today. Carrillo Tapia de LULAC, thank you. And Maria Lita is also a community member. Thank you so much.
Yes, hello everybody. First of all, I'm going to ask everybody to turn off your microphones if you're not participating, and then as you participate, you can turn them on so we can so we don't hear your background. And yes, hello, good night. My name is Maria Segari, la Contadora Latina for Houston Tax Professionals. Like Raymundo said, we decided to do this show in English and Spanish for our English audience. And tonight we're going to be talking about Vanessa. Again, we're going to continue this news and see how everything is going to develop. And good night, everybody. Mr. Eduardo.
Yeah, my name is Edwardo Rodriguez. I am the assistant or deputy district director for young adults in the District 18 of LULAC here in Houston. And as one of the hosts here, we are going to be talking about a lot of different things in the community. So your input, people that are watching and listening, is very important to us. Whatever you want us to talk about, the only thing we'd like for you to remember is if you're going to want us to talk about something, it has to affect the Hispanic community. That's the one thing that we'd really like to know, because that's what we're all about. We want to be able to hear and express the things that you guys are talking about. Tonight, as already been mentioned, we're going to be talking about Vanessa, because that's a big deal that's going on nationally, and there's some things that are getting ready to happen this month on a national level. And tonight we have two guests. One guest is District Director for District 17 LULAC. That is part, or rather, Guillen and Fort is part of her district. So she'll be hopefully giving us a better idea of what's going on in the local area and bringing us up to date. The family went to Washington, D.C., and I know she was part of that party there. So it'd be really interesting to see what's going on with that firsthand. So thank you for showing up tonight.
Thank you very much. Ana Luisa, welcome. Can you please give us a little brief about yourself and what we're going to be talking about tonight?
Good evening. My name is Ana Luisa Carrillo Tapia, a sus órdenes. I am the district director for LULAC, District 17, Central Texas. And unfortunately, the area where Vanessa Guillen passed away is in my district. So what we're going to be talking about is Vanessa Guillen and how we got started and where we're at today. Where we got started on the corner of Rancier and Fort Hood Street. Actually, this movement started with a yes. It started with a yes, and we received a phone call from Mrs. Gloria and Mayra, and they needed help. And so we didn't know that it was going to be at this national level. However, when you say yes, the worst thing is to have said no and have a mother go without her daughter and without the answers. And regrettably, yes, Vanessa has, passed. But however, her legacy, speaking for the victims of sexual harassment and sexual attack, is going to be a life changer. It's just a movement that It's not going to be stopped, and I'm glad for that. I'm glad for the individuals, ladies and gentlemen, that have been reaching out. We have a website called I Am Vanessa Guillen, and with that, it tells you that that person has endured an abuse, sexual abuse, sexual harassment. And with that, not only do we want to talk about it, but we want to provide resources, to provide counseling, to provide that healing that that person needs. That soldier's not always going to be living on base. That soldier's not always going to be working on base. They're going to eventually come out to the civilian side of the world, and we want to be able to have a positive impact for them, so they can move forward and become functioning members of society and be embraced with that care and concern that they deserve.
Very well. Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question? Yeah, I wanted to ask real quick. I know that it's been a big event in the local area. How did the other branches of LULAC get involved as far as the state and on national? And what input did they have to help you move forward with getting such a very important issue on the national stage?
I want to say that the cooperation from all the local councils that reached out to us, and we reached out to them. Some answered, some didn't, because of the concern of COVID. And when we said we're going to be on the corners, so we're going to be protesting, we're going to be bringing this out, we need attention from anybody and everybody, and we need to make this happen. It wasn't an option. It wasn't a you can either embrace fear or you can get to moving and just shake it off. So those councils that helped out, we appreciate them. Those that were concerned and, como se dice, timid about being part of it, it's okay. We understand. We understand if they weren't there this time, perhaps if we should need it again, I hope that we can count on them on the next rounds. And so how they helped was reaching out through Facebook, reaching out. We did ask people to contact their Congress and their state representatives. So I also reached out to our state director, and from there we went on to our national president, Mr. Domingo Garcia. Forgive me, our state director, Mr. Rudy Rosales, and then from there our national president, Mr. Domingo Garcia, and then it went on to our chief executive officer, Ms. Cindy Benavides. So everybody was like, "Let's go, let's make this happen," and I'm just thankful for our leadership, because you're as strong as your strongest and you're as weak as your weakest. And I'm here to tell you that LULAC from 1929 to 2020, we haven't changed and we're not moving and we're going strong. And I do want to mention today is the anniversary for El Paso. Our hearts go out to them. Our prayers are with them. And if I may ask for a moment of silence, I would ask for that, please. If our moderator would
Of
take
course,
the lead.
yes. You can take.
Bless them, Lord. And we will never be silent again. We will speak. We will motivate people to get out there and vote. We will motivate people to be strong in their nationality and their ethnicity, and be respectful of themselves and be respectful of our communities. That's our commitment.
Well, I was speaking for those of us here in Houston anyway. So, you know, I know that we spoke briefly a couple of times, but you know, I think that the people that you have under you over there in District 17 did an outstanding job. This is one of the most delicate, if not probably, I know for our community, one of the most important issues of our lifetime. And the way that it's been handled has been very professional. very sincere, very honest. It's been one of the few times that I think we can see, especially right now with everything going on in our country, has shown that you can still create an atmosphere of sincere, hopeful help from the community and the community members. It's been unbelievable. The leadership on this has been outstanding. So myself personally, I applaud you. It was excellent, excellent leadership on this.
Amen. We thank God for that, because people are looking at us like we're experts, and we're not. We're not experts. We're all volunteers. We're all, different walks of life. We got teachers, we got, medical personnel, we got retired military, we got, everybody's bringing a grain to this beach. And so we didn't know how to coordinate a protest. However, the baseline to that was to do it respectfully. We had a couple of people show up, and they were asked to excuse themselves because they wanted to run to the base. They wanted to go burn things down. They wanted to go cause destruction. And so we weren't going to have that, because we wanted the focal point to be Vanessa and the justice for Vanessa Guillen. We didn't want anything to tarnish that. We didn't want anything to change that and to take away from the mission. And so we did ask the individuals to excuse themselves, and we were ridiculed. They said that nobody was going to listen to us, and we're going to stand there and make noise. And that's all we were going to do. And so I'm here to tell you that the voices of the pueblo, of the community, have been heard. Number one, in heaven with our Heavenly Father, and the rest, you see where it's at nationwide and even international, because Mexico joined in on a vigil, Germany joined in on a vigil, Holland joined in. And so when we unite under a banner of justice, regardless what your language is, it's still the same outcome. You stay with it and don't let go. Don't let go, and don't lower standards, and don't give up.
I know that we're getting ready to do a national event regarding this. Do you have any information on that?
Yes, our Chief Executive Officer, Ms. Cindy Benavides, after the march that happened in Washington, she had to go back to the office. And then later on, when we spoke again, she said, when is the funeral? And I told her I didn't have the answer. And I told her, I said, I do know it's supposed to be sometime this week. And she said, so we need to do a national vigil. And so this following weekend was not going to be appropriate, because to our understanding is sometime during the week will be the funeral. And so Ms. Cindy Benavides said, what about the 15th? And so she's our Chief Executive Officer. I don't have an answer as to why not. And so with respect to the family and notifying the family, that's what we're going to be promoting, a nationwide, and I'm going to dare say international vigil, because again, we do have family members. We have, and I would say family because I believe it's only one God, one family. So regardless what your skin color, what your language is, you're still one family. And so with that, international, worldwide, whatever the proper title is, that's what we're calling for. We're calling for unity. We're calling for justice for Vanessa Guillen. We're calling to honor the life of Vanessa Guillen.
Have
And
you
also,
heard anything else?
absolutely, we are calling for support of the Vanessa Guillen bill.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I was just getting ready to ask you, do you know of anything that, as far as, legislature or anything that we might be hearing about or getting ready to hear as well? So that's a very good point you just mentioned. Thank you. Okay. Well, one of the things that I know that we've talked about before here with regards to this is how this affects, our community, because we have a lot of people in our community, young adults, that are getting ready to decide after graduating from high school, should they go to the military? And if they do, what branch of service do they go to? You know, and we as parents, how do we react now? Now that we know what kind of culture may be there, you know, with regards to our daughters anyways, you know, how do we react? What do we do? How do we ask? You know, is there going to be oversight? Is there going to be a place that they, you know, I know that all these things are still in motion and what have you, but the community itself, the mom and pop, you know, they still, I don't think we've still addressed that one yet. And I really don't know how we're going to address that yet. But that's one of the deals that I think we need to probably sit down with maybe the state and try to work something out on that.
Well, hopefully whoever enlists would probably, I would say, hopefully after January of 2021, after legislature meets, I would say as a parent, I would probably feel better. So if anybody's in the process of enlisting, perhaps if they can do the delayed entry program where they can sign up to 6 months, como se dice, past that point of doing the contract. Perhaps I would, if this was for me to do and one of my children to do, I would recommend that once these new legislatures, this bill comes into effect, where there's a better way of monitoring and processing these, como se dice, concerns about sexual assault, harassment. As a parent, I believe I would feel a little bit more at ease, just a little bit, like a tenth, of having them wait. Of course, every parent's gonna think different. Some people were ridiculing, saying, how is it that LULAC is calling for no enlistments? We echoed what Mama Guillen said. She said no enlistments, we said no enlistments. Because again, we stand in solidarity with them and we're keeping our promise to stand by their side. And anything that affects one person affects the whole community. And until they can guarantee us the safety and the true process of the law, where it has to do with sexual assault and harassment, is, you know, maybe some people don't really realize that once somebody goes through that, their mentality is going to be different. It's going to be more defensive. And then you're talking about, you're teaching that soldier how to carry a rifle. You're teaching that person how to defend themselves. But then how do you defend yourself when the person that's, you know, falling into being the enemy dresses like you, sits in the mess hall with you, carries a rucksack along with you out in the field? So there needs to be I want to say a change in that climate. You know, there was a comment that was said, well, deal with it. No, deal with it. You deal with it. You change that climate.
Exactly. We were talking last time about how the culture in these institutions is a little bit of macho culture, or it could be like bullying between the members in there. So can you remind us a little bit about what this legislation is about for the people?
The Vanessa Guillen bill. So what that's going to do is going to provide a third-party reporting system. So like Mama Guillen was told that she was getting, le estaban acosando, they were harassing her. That would empower Mama Guillen to report it. Even though Vanessa wasn't reporting it for fear of retaliation, it wouldn't necessarily be a report to the military installation, but it would be a report nevertheless to where they would reach out and hold counseling sessions with Vanessa to see at what extent and what they can do to help, to alleviate, to change that course, and also obviously to prevent a rape, an attack, sexual assault.
Okay, so in my case, I don't have anybody that is military or has been in the military in the US. So I didn't understand exactly why the police was not notified, right? about what was happening. So, Mr. Eduardo, can you please explain us a little bit how it works inside the army, how it works inside the institution, and how these institutions have their own police per se, and why the third party has to come into place?
Yeah, the way the system is set up, it's one of the craziest systems ever set up. The actual first court system and the actual first law enforcement system in the United States was in fact the military. And they did that because of the actual war that we had to become a nation. The generals had to have some way of ensuring discipline in the field. Well, the problem with that was it became its own little world. And when it did that, it took away the people that are inside, the soldiers, it took away their rights on the civilian side. So they couldn't report it to the police. They would be going out of the chain of command, they say, and they couldn't report it to the local courts. They couldn't do all that stuff because there was already a system in place to take care of that. And the mentality was, we're going to take care of our own, regardless whether it's they need help or if they need to be punished. And that's what created something that's very different. And today, it still exists. It is so bad that even in a situation like this, the FBI cannot go in. The only one that's allowed as far as a civilian law enforcement agency to do any type of investigation is the United States Marshal Service. And that's under an order of a court. Without that order, they can't do it. Now, each branch has their own independent, supposed to be independent, investigative branch, which is in the Army, it's called CID, the Criminal Investigative Division. In the Navy, it's NCIS. And the Air Force, they have their own, I think it's OSI. But the thing is, they're still soldiers. They're retired, but they still answer to the same boss. In other words, CID, these guys may be in civilian clothes and they may be civilians as an employee, but when their report is made, when their boss makes a judgment call, it goes to the same head guy, the Secretary of the Army. The same thing is that the general who's out in the field and he's taking care of his people or making a decision or has to discipline somebody, when he makes his report, he sends it to the same guy, the Secretary of the Army. So there's no real outside, looking in. And I know that that's one of the things we really definitely want and we need. We need to have that oversight because that's in keeping with the Constitution. That's in keeping with what the people want. When the president was first, when that position was first made, Washington was asked if he wanted to be basically the king and run this whole country. He said, no, it has to be an independent person. It has to be a civilian position. Why? Because the military person thinks different than the civilian. So the civilians should always be in charge of the government, in this case, the military. Well, we don't have that inside the military. There's no place for me as a soldier to go because everything's supposed to be on the inside to help me out. But that's what happened in this case. We've had people, we had reports where somebody was assigned to be in charge of teaching sensitivity training and harassment training, and they're the ones doing it. So how do you go and go to your boss and say, excuse me, boss, but the corporal, the sergeant, just try to make it past that meeting. I don't want to have anything to do with that person. Well, what you don't know is that guy and the corporal, the sergeant, they go out partying tonight. They don't care. So to them, they hang out together. So when I go to them and say, hey, I got a problem, they look at me like, well, maybe you're the problem. Why? He's been as longer than you. He's been as long as I have. I know him longer than I know you. If it was a problem, I would have already spotted it. No, that's not how it works. So when you have the fox guarding the hen house, and then he hires or gets other foxes to help him guard the hen house, the hens ain't got no place to go. And that's what we have right now. I think LULAC has made a big move in that direction.
Yes,
'Cause
I
I know
have a
that
question. Sorry to interrupt. I have a question for
Yeah, yeah.
Eduardo and Ana Luisa. Has there been any pushback by the military for people inside in the military, politicians or people who are former military organizations, to this bill and to this movement? Has there been any pushback?
For Ana Luisa? So what we have been approached with is some of the people that have been out there protesting with us chant, shut Fort Hood down. And what we want for legislature, we want protection for the soldiers. This is not a Democrat issue. It's not a Republican issue. It's not, and I said it, and I don't mean no disrespect. When there's an assailant trying to overpower the victim, they're not gonna ask, "Hey, are you a Democrat? Are you a Republican? Oh, you're from my political party, so let me not touch you." It doesn't happen like that. It doesn't happen like that. People say, "Oh, that we want to shut Fort Hood down." We understand that Fort Hood employs a lot of civilians. They have a lot of soldiers. So, we got their attention, yes. But now we want legislature to go through. We want that bill to pass, and it's going to be a move in the right direction for everybody concerned. Right now we're focusing on Fort Hood. There's issues all throughout. You go on our I Am Vanessa Guillen page, and you will read a lot of stories. People who are right now serving in the military, people who got, they went ahead and were given a medical retirement instead of dealing with the problem. The young lady that started the I Am Vanessa Guillen page, she was herself sexually assaulted. And, the trauma is life. It stays with you for the rest of your life. And, the changes she had to go through, she explained to us, all the lights had to stay on in her house, all hours of the night. The lights did not go off because she said nobody's going to break into a house when the lights are on. So she walked with that everywhere she went. So the changes that we want is not just, Fort Hood. It's for any military installation, any military branch. So for anybody to say, "Oh, you're against us," we're not against the military. If they would stop and take a moment and recognize and realize that this bill is to cover and protect every service member. And it's not a gender thing either, because we have had gentlemen report that they have been sexually assaulted, sexually harassed. And so if, it's not, we don't like you, Army, we don't like you, Marines, or any other branch. It's, we don't like what has happened to our military personnel. And so they protect us. This is our turn to protect them.
Thank you. Do you know how the family felt whenever they were in Washington sitting next to the president, or how was that atmosphere, or any thoughts or comments that the family had about meeting the president?
I know that Mama Guillen kept saying that, that he's gonna listen to me, and that he called, this is what she said, él me llamó. He called me to come see him. And to her, she says, that's a sign, a good sign, that he's listening and he's going to make a change and he's going to help pass this bill. Lupita was like, he really talked to me. He really told me that, for my age, I was very mature. So she felt like, he really values, them and their time. Comments were made, "Oh, this is just a political plot." Again, if we stop and start focusing on that, we lose focus on the mission. Because had the president been a Democrat, it would have been, "Oh, well, we're pushing for him to be president." He's a Republican. "Oh, we're pushing for him to be president." We're pushing for legislature. We're pushing for protection for all our soldiers. So this is history in the making, and he can either be part of that and make it happen, or he can be the person to say, I turn a deaf ear, I turn a blind eye, and the next sexual assault that happens will be on his hands. And all the Congress, members of Congress hands.
Definitely. I agree with you, and I agree with the lawyer as well. Whenever the lawyer mentioned that what happened and what's happening inside the military is a national threat, it's a national interest, because we want to avoid that so people feel safe, soldiers feel safe.
Absolutely.
I want to say something too on that. I think that's one of the things that was overlooked in this deal as far as their meeting. I felt that he was very sincere in what he wants to do, and that he really was sincere and wanted to do something on a personal level, not just a presidential level. Because I think it's like you said, Anna, that you know what, if this blows up, if something else happens after this, it's on him, and there is no way he can get out from underneath that. That was, I mean, for me and for the other party, they should be really happy with the fact he just stuck his neck out a mile. Because if anything happens, that's it. It's over. I don't see how he could get out from underneath that. I don't see it. I don't think the Hispanic, I know for a fact LULAC's not going to let him go. So, he took a big, chance on this. But more importantly, I think it's like, Mother Guillen said that, he's got kids. He knows. He understands that part. And I think that's one of the things when he was talking about was, he said, I heard this, I saw it, I think like 11 days before he made the call or whatever, but it really got to him, and it looked like it really got to him. There's a lot of times that we go through life and we're hard and we do this and we do that. I know, because that was part of my job too, but there's times when you run across something, man, it tugs at your heart, no matter how or what you are or who you are, it just gets you. And you feel like you got to do something. You just got to. So I took that as a good sign as well.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with your comment, Eduardo. Yeah, he needed to step in, and he stepped in, and it's not an issue like Annalisa mentioned. It's not a Democrat Republican issue. It's a national interest issue. It's a national security threat to have people commit those crimes and not be held accountable. There has to be policy legislation, and we're going to be pushing for that, and we're here to support LULAC, support Ana Luisa, and anyone who is pushing for that legislation.
Exactly. So I have a question. Can you say if this legislation is it's almost there, or do you think it's going to face any difficulties?
Is that a question for me?
Yes.
Okay. So the only thing that would keep this bill from passing is if they start attaching other bills to it, other stipulations. And at the moment, I'm not aware of any, but that usually is what kills a bill. It can have the most monumental change coming on that bill, but then when they start attaching other things to it, and then now you get that resistance. And so, like I said, this issue, it should be bipartisan support through and through. And because why? Because the responsibility is bipartisan as well, through and through.
Exactly. So when you say you want another somebody else to come in, a third party, who would that be? Exactly.
Well, there's different programs. I do not have that information, what the names of the organizations would be. However, just knowing that it's there, it's going to bring, it already has a light on the situation. And it's bringing to where the person is going to be accountable. There's going to have to be changes. So again, it was mentioned about that SHARP program, the sexual, sexual harassment, abuse and reduction program, something like that. They did have an instructor that ended up running a prostitution ring. So therefore your confidence in the program is minimized. And then that person finish whatever, como se dice, whatever he owed the military as far as punishment. When he came out to the civilian sector, that record did not follow him to the point that he became a foster parent. See? Now you have un depravador sexual, you have a pervert, you know, and who would trust a child into the hands of this individual? So the same that happens, and this is something that we were talking about, the same thing when you enlist in the military, they do a background check on you to make sure that you haven't committed crimes and, you know, all this to make sure that you're coming in and you're a person of good moral ethics. We, as a civilian side of this community, we want the same thing. When you're coming out from the military, not everybody has served honorably, regrettably. And when that person comes out, whatever crime they've committed, assault, rape, homicide, whatever, needs to follow them. Needs to follow them so that that gap is closed to where, you know, whatever you did is going to follow you and it's going to keep you from taking advantage of somebody else and abusing somebody else and having a job that you do not deserve to have.
I apologize for interrupting here. So the person who run the prostitution ring, he's out. He's not in jail.
To my understanding, no. He served whatever time in confinement, and he was discharged dishonorably, reduced to the lowest rank, and all that. That's one. But then when you come out to the civilian side of the world, they, you know, say a foster system, that should have appeared in that background check, and it didn't.
Whoa. Eduardo, maybe you can touch on the subject. How can we change this, or what can we do in this case scenario so that record follows that individual for committing such crimes? They need to be in jail for that.
Well, you know, that's one of the things we're talking about, that they have their own little world, their own little system. Everything is all kept in that one situation there. So, and we know, other military people, we know, when we see somebody with an application come in, we know because we see the codes on there. We know what it means. But you can't use them. You can't sit there and say, well, you know, hey, boss, this guy's had this and had that. We can't do it because if we can't confirm it, then, you know, and this is not the first time. We had an Air Force gentleman from the Air Force who got out, had major problems inside the Air Force. He came out, he committed several killings and was finally arrested, but the same thing happened there. The system did not follow him, that record didn't follow him out here to the civilian world, so they didn't even know. And so how do we change that? We don't need to do legislation. We don't. The system is already there. Only thing that has to occur right there is for one person, and I'm going to throw it back into the president's lap. Only one person has to sit there and sign a piece of paper saying that record will follow. And it will be put into the national FBI system, and everybody has access to it. That's all that has to happen. Now, what hasn't happened before? Again, as the commander-in-chief, his job is to tell these people, I need for you to go out and fight our wars and die for our country. So to keep and maintain that trust that he needs from them, he allows them to maintain that independent world of theirs. Well, it's got to stop. And one of the things that I've talked about before is this country is less than 300 years old. We're still a baby. So we got some changing to do. This is one of those times when we can do some great growth, you know, because we've been crawling. We're at the stage now we're kind of like toddlers in the world. Well, then we need to start walking. But there's a right way and a wrong way to be taught to do that. And we've got to become more transparent. I'm not saying that, you know, we want to violate privacy. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is this. You have to understand that if you're going to take a public service job, then everybody should know something about you. There is a private side, but professionally, publicly, we need to know a little bit about you more than my neighbor. Why? Because you're the one that I'm going to count on. I do the same thing with the police brutality cases that we have right now. One of the big issues that I say there is this. You know, if the cops don't want to be cops, you can quit. You can go work someplace else. We don't have a problem with that. But I need to know that you are there for me. Now, here's the difference. This is an example that I use. How is it that, let's say, for instance, we have a gentleman in the service who goes to Afghanistan or Iran or anywhere overseas, and then while he has an opportunity to call home every now and then, be it video or telephone or what have you, his wife tells him that there's something going on. She's having a problem. Somebody's talking. She feels like somebody's watching the house. So what does this man do? He calls the local PD and says, hey, I'm a serviceman over here stuck in, in Afghanistan or wherever, protecting the country. And my wife is having problems. I can't be there for you. Can you send an officer over there? They send somebody over there. I need to know as anybody that I can trust him, that I can rely on him to take care of my family while I'm not there. And 6 months later, I show up because they finally got my discharge. I show up and guess what? He's living in my house with my wife. That's the attitude we've got to get rid of. But that attitude exists in the service as well. They've got that little bitty world of theirs, and that transparency is very important. How do we do that? The way we're doing it right now, the way that the District 17 and LULAC National and State have done it, by going out the proper way, dealing with the people one-on-one. Look how quickly we've been able to do this. It's unbelievable. We still have legislation from years ago that we're working on. This particular case is so important, and it's hurt the community so much that we are mad that we were able to do all this within months. It's incredible what we've been able to do, and we can do that with a lot of other things too.
Thank you very much, Edward, for your words. You mentioned something that got my attention. You said that we are still babies as a country, right? Like the United States is a baby still. You don't think this happened in other countries and other armies? I don't know, Europe, perhaps? It does happen?
Yeah, it happens in every country. Every single country goes through this. It's just part of growing pains of, being able to do one thing better than the other. Here in the city of Houston, here in Texas, we've done the same thing. When we were, when we were Texas under Mexico, it was a totally different mindset for the people. When it became Texas, the state, they had a whole different type of doing things. And when it became part of the Confederacy and part of the United States, we still think differently than anybody else in the United States. So each country goes through this because it takes a while for the people to get together. Now, it doesn't take as long in other countries because the people, for the most part, are the same. Russians are Russians, Cubans are Cubans, Chinese are Chinese, so on and so on. The U.S. is very unique in that we have people from all over the world. And that makes it very, very hard for us to get together on the same deal. But what makes us, unique makes us also the most powerful country in the world. It's amazing what we're able to do in this country. And this is a great example of what happens when people from all different nations, and I'm talking about the Hispanic community, because we have people, they're from Central America, South America, from, all these different countries, Mexico, Texas, Tejanos, Mexico, whatever you want to call us. We're all together under this cause right now for Vanessa. Look what we've been able to accomplish. So it can be done. It really can be done. And right now, I don't know about the rest of the country, but maybe they should be watching us do this, because it looks like to me anyways, our community is a great example of how much can get done when everybody pulls together.
Maria, Lita, if you have any questions, comments that you want to ask, maybe you want to ask a question to Ana Luisa or Eduardo of us, or one of us, or any comments? You're on mute.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just like listening to you. Things come in my mind as a mother and as a grandmother. You know, I'm very worried and concerned about that we don't have a system, or we don't have like a process for parents to get trained in the military bases. Like how, if the mom Guillen knew that, you know, Vanessa was harassed, sexual harassed, how she couldn't be able to help. And my response, since I knew this, is because she did. I don't know if that, like, the military base, before they get into the program, if they train the parents in this, like how the parents can protect the kids. I know they have a contract, but I don't understand how she couldn't be able to report it. And I know we're trying to change this, but it's like not only in the military bases, but it's everywhere. You know, even in the church, you know, how many abuses happen there and maybe still happening. And we just have a culture to stay quiet about it. So I think we have a lot of work to do to be more open and train the people, or the parents, the young kids, to be able to speak out. Listening to Lupe Guillen with the president, she was so frustrated when she told the president why they stay quiet, why they cannot talk about what happened with Vanessa. Why, when we were asking questions about what happened to Vanessa when she was reporting the sexual harassment, why everybody was quiet? So when she was talking about that, I was just like, this is a culture, you know, and it's not only in Latino community. This is a culture for like all of us, even in the house. You know, we never talk about when things like that happen to some, like one of us, you know. And I think it's time to put attention to that and to push in all the levels. Like we need to be able to train, and we need to be able to pass a law that this can be zero tolerance, because we cannot cover anybody. I think this is completely wrong. And as a parent, you know, I don't know how I'm gonna feel if something happened to my daughter or my son, because this is not only about girls, this is about boys too, you know. And it has to stop. You know, it's just this case is very sad, but this case is very powerful because it's open up, you know, the Guillen family opened up something that everybody was ready to do it, but we didn't know how. And we cannot lose this great opportunity. We need to come together, and, you know, we need to inform more the parents and do something better to stop this mess. That's how I feel.
You
That's
mentioned
how I feel.
something that I thought about the other day. You know, we Latinas, especially Latinas, right? We are very shy. Our culture is like, well, just suck it up and don't tell anybody because you don't want to disturb or cause a scene or anything. I think our girls have their culture too. You know, like Vanessa, she was really young, but she was still living at home with her mom. And I was really happy how she had this very close relationship with her mom, right? To where the mom noticed, she says something is wrong. I can tell something's wrong. Even though the girl didn't say anything, the mom just looking at her, she knew that something was wrong with her. And that really touched me because I have daughters, you know, and sometimes I can tell they have something they just don't want to tell me. And that was very, it got my attention because the mom said, I know something's going on, right? And it's because Vanessa was still living at home, and because they have this relationship. Now imagine how many moms or how many girls, young girls like her, or even younger, how many girls go through that and they don't have anybody, you know? And they just disappear, they just get killed, nobody knows, nobody fights for them, they don't have voice after that.
Yeah, but knowing the family, I'm sure Vanessa was somebody that was like speaking up, because looking at the mother and the sisters, this is a family who don't stay quiet, but the system failed them, because I'm sure Vanessa reported, but the system failed because they didn't do anything for her. And also, that system failed the mother, because the mother, even she knew, and she was suspecting that something bad was happening to her daughter. She was not able to do anything about it. And that's what is really killing me, because I said, this could be prevented. How this happened? If the mother knew, the daughter reported, so why? That's what it's just like. I'm very unhappy with the systems who fail us, because they failed that family, but you can see everybody, because you can see all the people who is supporting them, because they know, these systems are failing us in all the issues, not only in sexual harassment or attack. It's in everywhere. Education is another system that is failing us. We're in the middle of in a pandemic, and they want to reopen the schools, and parents like trying to like do something, they're suffering from a lot of different difficult emotions. We are very worried. We have a stress, confusion. So
Maria,
we need to finish this.
Maria, sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
You mentioned a comment about speaking up a couple minutes ago, and I agree. People need to speak up, especially Latinos and Hispanic, and any issue, sexual harassment, like in this case in the military, and outside, outside the military, civil life. Whenever things happen, not only in sexual harassment, but other issues, discrimination issues, or any type of issue that affects the community, and they just don't want us to what's it called, follow proper ways to report it, or maybe tell someone that something happened. But we need to speak up, be able to speak up. And in today's world, everybody, most of us have a phone. We can record whenever injustice is happening and report it and show it. Also post it in social media. Social media is a powerful tool, and we can find discrimination towards Hispanic and Latinos, and like Eduardo and Ana Luisa mentioned, and Maria, like whenever this the movement started to seek justice for Vanessa Guillen, it took some time, but a short period of time, but it took its way to happen, and the movement is still there, and we're gonna fight for justice for her and this legislation to pass. But whenever a person is suffering discrimination, please report it. If you're not able to report it because the person who you want to report is above you or is threatening you for XYZ reason, use your phone and record it. You can put it in your pocket, or somehow just record it and share it to us, share it to a member of LULAC, or to any community activist, community member, and we will fight for you for justice, because we're not scared speaking up. And it's not that we're not saying that you're scared, but we understand you because we have been there. I have been there whenever people discriminated me, and I felt what is happening, what's going on, and I didn't want to say anything, but I have come to realize that technology is very powerful. Social media is very powerful, and you can report things that happen.
That's true. And then Luisa said something that really got my heart. You say that we are making history, right? And I know that because sometimes people reach out to our office and say, hey, I feel I was abused, or I've been discriminated by my employer, or different scenarios, right? And here we have a person with no status sitting right next to the president of the United States, being listening to, like, she is getting justice somehow, right? It doesn't matter if you don't have a status in this country, you have rights, and people needs to know that. And Luisa, what can you say about that? That's really, really important. It is history in the making. What can you say about that?
So you heard people say knowledge is power. It is very, very true. When you know your First Amendment rights, that you have a right to gather, you have a right to free speech, and you embrace that, even through COVID, we've been there, we've been protesting, nothing has stopped us. And every time that we sent our mayor notice that this is what we're gonna do, we always let him know we are following COVID-19 restrictions. Something that I wanna reiterate to Ms. Maria, she said that she doesn't understand why it wasn't reported. I'm gonna tell you what I was told, Vanessa told to her mom, que dijo que no, porque, let me say in English, perdón, that she was gonna take care of it herself. She said, because that person, all they did was move them around. So when you see somebody, one of your battle buddies, las soldadas, the soldiers that are serving with her, and they go through something similar, and so her confidence in their reporting system was not there. So it wasn't that she didn't know the procedure. It wasn't that she was just like, it was not enough to bother her. It was that she did not believe in the system. That's the answer to that. She didn't believe in it. She saw how other people got treated. She saw that all they would do is move the perpetrator to another company, but they're still on the same military base. And if you look at different cases, you know, there's a young lady in Korea, she reported it. They moved the soldier, the male soldier, and she still said, I still don't feel safe. And this is in 2018, not too long ago. And then a couple of months later, you talk about November to January, and then next thing you know, they find her dead outside of her barracks room, naked. You know, so the process, it needs to change. It needs to have a accountability. Prison systems had to do that, to where they have an accountability to the Attorney General's office. There needs to be something in place. It needs to change. It needs to change, and the reporting system needs to change, and who it needs to be reported to needs to change, and the follow-up. If you're not familiar with the report, one is restricted and one is unrestricted. The restricted one is just pretty much the person that was assaulted or harassed just making a report. Somebody harassed me, somebody raped me, which doesn't fit in my mind, because why would you tell somebody of something so tragic and such invasive and just make it a piece of paper, you know? And the unrestricted one is the one that you do want to follow charges. You do want to go through the rape kit. You do want to go through all that embarrassing stuff so that the person can face penalties. Honestly, they should get rid of the other one, the so-called, I guess on the civilian side, just a report. You know, no, if somebody rapes, harasses, there has to be repercussions, not just a report. You shouldn't be just a page on somebody's book sitting on a desk. That's somebody's life, and they need to be respected.
That is true. You are referring to Lavina Johnson, correct? The soldier. What was very particular about this case is that her death was ruled as a suicide. So, and I came to this, the suicide rate for anybody in the army or other institution is 24%. So 24 people died out of 100 due to suicide. And how many of those are really murders or rapes, or we don't know that, because if they rule them as suicides, I know there's no investigation that follows. Correct.
Going back, pardon.
Go ahead.
Going back to the case, I have one question that I have back in my mind. So the command, the people above everyone who is in charge of the military base in Fort Hood, what are the consequences they're gonna happen? They're gonna be. What are the consequences to them? What is gonna happen to them? Because we all, the Hispanic community, well, in my case, or the Hispanic community in general, wants to see justice, but they also have a burden to what happened to Vanessa. They have a responsibility because they were the ones on top, and they didn't do anything to stop that and for happening. And something very, very sad and tragic happened, but it also is their fault because they're the ones in charge. I don't know, Eduardo or Ana Luisa can mention anything.
Yeah, I can talk about that. That's a very, very important part of this. The backstory is what I'm going to call it, because there is a backstory to all this. There's backdoor politics in all this as well. And in that particular case, let me tell you what happens. We've all heard about the captain goes down with the ship. We've all heard about people sitting there saying that the captain is responsible for anything that goes on this ship. Well, it's the same thing in the Army base as well. The general is in charge of all that stuff, and he's going to have to answer for it. But here's the problem with that. It's not a criminal case. Yes, it happened while he was in charge. It happened because his leadership was probably not the best. But when he gets told to step down, number one, he will more than likely be allowed to retire, keeping all the money he made. Number two, when he gets out to the civilian world, he'll still be able to get a job. Because remember, again, he did nothing criminally wrong, so nobody can use it against him out there in the real world. They'll know that he messed up, but it comes down to, well, yeah, you were in charge when this happened, but you didn't really do it. It was just one of you guys. You can't be responsible for everybody. And that's how the attitude goes. So he'll still be able to write a book. He'll still be able to be an advisor on movies for, military movies. He'll be able to do the talk circuit and make $200,000 or $300,000 a year. He'll get on CNN, Fox, or whoever that wants to hire him and give his little 2 cents for whatever. Nothing really happens to him. And that's something that also has to change. We need to add an accountability to what is going on, so that just like we do with the prisoners, when somebody gets convicted in a criminal court, if they go to prison, they cannot write a book. I mean, they can, but they're not allowed to keep that money. They can go ahead and help out with making a movie, but when the movie comes out, they don't get any of that money. All that goes to the victim, all of it. Well, we need to have accountability, as far as our government officials too. That includes politicians. That if you make a mistake and we can catch you at it, guess what? You don't just lose that position. You lose everything you worked hard for. Why? Because the person who just got killed, they lost everything too. All of it. I'm sorry, I really am. But that's part of being a politician, being a soldier, being a police officer, being a priest, being whatever it is you want to be. If you're going to be in what we call a public trust position, then you got to put it up or shut up, in my opinion. And that's how it should be.
So right now, in the civilian world, like you mentioned it, there's something called the crimes victim compensation, right? So does the military have that? Like if I am a victim of rape, can I claim that?
No.
Do I get anything?
No. Now, there are victim programs designed to help you. There are money set aside for you, for your healing, for your psychiatrist, and for all that good stuff. But from the guy who did that to you, from the girl who did that to you, no.
Well, I think that would be fair. to get that program there too. But just really quick, the candlelight, we don't have a date, right? It could be possibly on the mid of this month, 15, 16, around there. Ana Luisa?
So the date was established for August the 15th at 7 p.m. And it will be August the 15th, viene siendo a Saturday. Saturday, August 15, 2020 at 7 p.m. wherever you happen to be at.
So if somebody
And
wants
that
to
is to
participate,
honor the life of soldiers.
Vanessa. So every city is gonna have one. You have to contact your local LULAC if you want to participate. Is that true?
They can, and we also know that there's other organizations that are part of this. My Sister's Keepers. There's a bunch of organizations. So whoever is doing it, again, just do it respectfully, and it's a vigil, and just promote that, and also ask for the support of your Congress and your state representatives to support the I Am Vanessa Guillen bill.
Very well.
Yeah, here locally in Houston, anyway, as far as District 18 is concerned, I called yesterday to speak to our district director here, and I was nominated to be in charge of it here. So
You were
I'll be working on
vulnerable.
that.
Perfect.
Pardon, sorry to interrupt. Going back to one question, I apologize for asking too many questions, but I know they talk to politicians and congressional members, but maybe not mentioning names, or if you want to mention names, Ana Luisa, or anyone who has knowledge of the case, were there any Congress people who didn't treat right the family, or didn't give much importance to the case? Because that's something that we have to know as a Hispanic community members, to hold those people accountable.
Well,
No, I can't say that, because everybody seemed to be courteous. Everybody seemed to be respectful from what we saw. I know Congresswoman Garcia has been, just the utmost working on humanitarian visas. There's a lot place for the family to be in. There's a based out of New York, so those are the names that stand out to me.
Thank you for mentioning that. Thank you.
well, anybody has any other question for tonight? Any comments?
Comments?
I have a question. We were supposed to talk about Gregory Morales too.
Oh, yes.
Is this all information applied to him, or are we supposed to talk about his case too? Because this is another Hispanic who, after like 2 years, I think, somebody found it, his body.
If I can answer that, please.
No, I'm asking. My question is if we were supposed to talk about his case too in these conversations,
Yes,
or
pardon me. It was my fault for not mentioning. Yes, I had mentioned it to Eduardo and Maria, and yes, because whenever they were talking with the president, the family and the lawyer mentioned Gregory Morales, and that's one of the reasons that we wanted to talk about the case. And thank you for bringing it to us, because I forgot about it. Sorry about that. Anyways, the president had he mentioned Gregory Morales. So talking LULAC or Eduardo and Alisa, tell us about, in particular to that case, what's going to happen, and the people who that investigation. Is there an investigation into whoever committed, whoever killed that the soldier, or is there anything happening for him?
Okay, so I think I'll go ahead and answer that one. So Mr. Gregory Waddell Morales, he was not a Latino. He's not a Latino. He has his stepfather's last name, Morales.
Oh, okay. Well,
Okay.
it doesn't
He
matter.
came up missing August the 19th of 2019 and living here in Killeen. It came on the news, like, you know how they announce, if you have any information, call this number. And it came up one time and one time only. After that, we didn't hear anything about it. So, you know, it wasn't a recurring thing. Nobody brought it back up. And so we thought, well, maybe he was found. Maybe he went back to the military. We didn't know anything. And so when we start the movement with Vanessa and the reward money goes up, then all of a sudden a tip comes in. And of course they find him in a field, and yeah, so they found him. And so getting tips for Vanessa, you know, that opened up that opportunity for somebody to call and leave a tip about Gregory. Ms. Kim, I myself called Ms. Kim, his mother, to apologize because we did not hear about it. And a comment was made on Facebook that we didn't look for him, that nobody else made noise about him, that it was always about Vanessa and nobody pulled together for Gregory. And so I called and I extended our apologies because we did not hear about him missing after that one news report. And she said, well, yeah, I understand. And so I did ask her, man, moving forward, when is his funeral? What can we as LULAC do to help? And so she says that he wasn't even getting military honors. And so I asked her, what is that about? And she said that they were waiting on the autopsy because at that point, the casualty assistance officer had told her that he was not going to get any military honors because it would depend on the autopsy. If it was determined that he had passed immediately after he came up missing or after he was, como se dice, titled a deserter. And so we were like, this is ridiculous. Then she shared, he had a 6-year commitment in the military. He was on his last month of service to the military. So he was already getting ready to start out processing. So him deserting, going AWOL, just disappearing on his own was very unlikely. Very, I mean, I'm telling you, I could have bet my house on it. Very unlikely. So I asked her, what is it going to take? She said, I don't know. They're going to do the autopsy, and depending on that, we'll see what happens. So I told her we would be in contact. I reached out, talked to my state director, Mr. Rudy Rosales. I talked to my national president, Mr. Domingo Garcia, and they were like, really? And Mr. Roman Palomares, he's our person in charge of military issues. And so we talked about it. They were gonna, they already had a meeting scheduled to talk to the Secretary of the Army over Vanessa's issue. And so they went ahead and included that. And after that conversation, they reinstated Gregory Waddell Morales. The mother was like, I don't care about the money, I care about the honor. You know, your name stays with you all your life and after. And so I thank our leadership again for having that integrity and working with everybody and anybody for the benefit of our community and the surrounding community, because, you know, it's not, it wasn't a race issue. It was an honor issue. It was an integrity issue. And I thank LULAC for taking that and running with it. And now we have a soldier that received his military burial last Thursday. The day we were in Washington with Vanessa Guillen Bill doing the march is the same day that he was buried with military honors. Again, this is what we do. You need help, we'll help you. It doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter. If we can, we sure will. And if we can't, then we'll reach out to other communities to make sure that you get the help that you need, because we're not going to leave you out stranded.
Thank you for everything that you do, Annalisa. Thank you, Eduardo, and thank you, LULAC. any final comments that anyone wants to say, or any final questions? If not, I want to say thank you for the guest of honor, Analisa Carrillo Tapia from LULAC. Thank you for joining us today. And just a reminder, we're gonna be having talk shows, and our guest of honor and Maria Lira, also our guest. You all are welcome to join us anytime or whenever there's issues that you want to talk about, Analisa. You can come to the show, and we're happy to to talk about it and try to resolve that matter. And if you need help with anything, we're here to help you, help LULAC, and help the Hispanic community. And like I mentioned, as a reminder, we're gonna have a show every Monday from 7 to 8:10 p.m. and then Wednesday, same time, 7 to 10 p.m. The Monday show is gonna be in English, and then Wednesday is gonna be in Spanish. And during the weekend, we're gonna have a Tex-Mex for our Tejanos, or Tex-Mex Chicanos, to talk about issues also affecting our community. And once again, thank you to all.
I have one thing, if I may.
Yes.
Okay, so we, throughout this COVID and stuff, we have the census. Please, if whoever's listening, please fill those out. And if you have a neighbor that needs help writing or like that, wear your protective mouth cover and help them out, because we need everybody to be counted. And it is so very important. Our resources, our ambulances, our schools, our hospitals, our roads, all of these things depend on us being counted. And it's not about nothing to do with
Sorry, we're not able to hear you, Ana Luisa. Can you repeat it again?
I think she lost connection.
Connections. Eduardo, can you mention it? You as a member of LULAC, can you talk about what Ana Luisa was saying, so for the census, how important it is for us, for Hispanic and Latino community, since we are gonna become the majority here in the state of Texas by mid 2021. How cool and awesome is that?
Yeah, it's a very important issue because of the fact that it brings the money that we need to help our communities, to help our schools, to help our kids, the hospital district, the state, the city, the county, all the monies that we get, even in an emergency like we had the Hurricane Harvey, all that is decided based on the local population. It's not decided on race. It's not decided on anything else. It's decided on population. So why is it important? It's important because it gives us a stronger voice when we're asking for benefits, when we're doing what we're trying to do. But again, I'll go back to Vanessa's case. The reason we were able to do that is because Texas has a big local footprint in politics, and they know that. So they had to listen. But that would not be the case if we didn't have the numbers, so we could show the politicians and everybody else that is possible. So whether we all vote or not is not important. The important thing is they saw X amount of millions of people that are Hispanic who could potentially vote. That's what you really need. So the census is very important.
Ana Luisa, can you mention the census? You were mentioning it previously a few minutes ago.
So what am I saying about the census? It is very, very important that we be counted. Everybody needs to be counted because our resources depend on that. Our hospitals, our schools, and yes, and even our representatives, depending on how many people we have in our areas, is how many representatives we get. And I'm going to disagree with my friend. It does matter. We need to get out there and vote. Vote your conscience. And if we could vote in English and then in Spanish, let's do it. But we can't. So we'll stick with the one and make that one count.
All right, awesome. So remember, fill out the census, do the census, especially if you're Hispanic or Latino. And remember also to vote, especially if you're Hispanic and Latino. I'm so happy
And
that
because you are.
So happy that by mid 2021, we're going to be the majority here in the state of Texas.
Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody, for being with us tonight. And Ana Luisa, I admire you, and you have my respects. You've been working really hard for this, and you have our support.
Well, I'm just the face of the team because it took a lot of people to make this happen, and I'll relay your admiration to them as well.
Thank you very much.
Gracias
Well,
a
thank
usted.
you, and thank you for everything, guys. And we'll see you next time on Wednesday.
Primero Dios.
Primero.
Bye.
Bye.